Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Women of Color and Confidence. I am your host, Amber Rose West. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers. She is a physician health coach specializing in family medicine and obesity medicine, and she runs the practice Essence of Health. Now, you may be thinking, I know that it's January, Amber, but I don't want to listen to an episode about how to eat better or move better. And that's really not what we talk about in this episode, although it is sprinkled throughout there. What we really chatted about was the mind-body balance of energy and connection inside of you as a person, what it means to have strong mental health, to help you make nutritional choices that help you have the energy inside of your body to live as the confident, happy woman that it is that you want to be. We touch a little bit about prevention and how you can engage prevention at any stage of your health journey, and also how to have self-confidence around doing things that you may not be super knowledgeable about when it comes to your mind, body, and energy connection, and how to have the confidence to take those first steps towards educating yourself in the direction of feeling better, thinking more clearly, having more energy throughout your day, and how to connect with people that will support you in this journey. I had such a great conversation with Dr. Shayla, and I want to share it all with you. So let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Do you have any questions for me before we start?
Well, not really about the podcast, but just more about your business and what you've been up to. But we can chat about that later if you want.
Sweet. Oh,
Yeah.
I love talking about my business. We could talk about that all day long.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're like, yeah. And I love all of the women that come on to the podcast because I feel like very similarly, all of us are very passionate about what we do
Right.
and the reason that we do it and the people that we help. And it's been a really rewarding thing to have these conversations with amazing Black women and everything that they're doing. And I really loved reading about what you're doing and this idea of I remember you said something about nutritional choices, and I was like, yes, I can't wait to talk about nutrition. While also, having all the benefits of like weight loss and better energy and
Yeah.
a better mental state. But that conversation around nutritional choices that doesn't happen very often, and I shouldn't say
Hmm.
maybe it doesn't happen very often, but we just don't talk about it as it being that. And so I was like, yes,
Exactly.
so excited to talk to Dr. Shayla. Well, speaking of, I'm very happy to have you on the show. I know this is going to be a great chat. I'm going to throw it off to you so that you can introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here. So, I am Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers. I am a board certified physician, certified in both family medicine and obesity medicine. And then I also hold a certification in plant-based nutrition. I've been practicing for over a decade now in the field, and I really started my practice. I'm physically located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but I also have a virtual platform too. But I really started my practice really to give patients a different experience. I found over the years in practicing just in several different environments that what folks really needed was one for their doctor to have more time with them and to actually talk to them, and then two to actually educate them on things that they can do beyond that prescription to improve their health. And it's really why I named the practice Essence of Health, because it really is essence of what I do in terms of helping folks to prevent and reverse chronic disease by making certain changes in their lifestyle, changing what we put on our plate, changing how we move, how we think, and just those different aspects into what we do and how we live to improve our health beyond just the prescription that I give.
Mhm. I love that. And we're going to talk a little bit about prevention today as well. So thank you for bringing that up. But I really loved, as I was looking through your website, is this idea of incorporating these things into like what we consider our everyday lives. And one of the things that I've noticed with people that I talk to about, health and nutrition and weight management, things that really support building a confidence practice or feeling more confident as a person, is that people think that all of these things need to be really, really big, drastic changes right off the bat. And I love this idea of it being an essence, which means that it's an energy that's involved with who you are and what you do on a regular basis, and seeing that as such a foundation for what it is you teach and how it is you help people made me really excited to chat with you. So thank you for that lovely introduction. I wanted to start with this idea of a health mindset and what health mindset means to you.
Yeah, certainly. So the slogan and the way that I've even, brand at my practices, I always use the slogan, the essence of health is in you. And the reason I say that, and one, because it's true, and two, is because for a lot of us, we know what we need and we know what we should be doing. And it's
Mhm.
because our body tells us. Our bodies are designed for us to feel good and to promote health. Our body's on its natural state wants to be in a state of health. We don't want to feel ill, which is why we have symptoms, and we feel these certain things when dysregulation occurs. And so that essence of health, it really is within each and every one of us. And so having that health mindset really is recognizing that and recognizing what your body is telling you and being prepared to then move that forward and make change or progress in terms of what needs to be done. So, but it really starts within yourself and recognizing, oh, I'm more tired than I should be,
Mhm.
or oh, I sweat a lot, or oh, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. Oh, my stomach's upset a lot. But recognizing that and recognizing what those next steps are to be done.
Yes, I love this. And I say the exact same thing about self-confidence. Like, we were made to be confident people. You look at
Mm,
children running around a playground and they're saying what they mean, and they're taking the toys that they want, and they're climbing things really high. I'm like, these are some confident people. And it really is all of the things that we learn as we continue to grow that separates us from that birthright that we have of being confident, very similarly to being healthy. It's all of the things that
mm,
we learn as we grow, and it's all of the inclusions of external factors that are now taught to us or instilled in us that separate us from that health that we are naturally born with, and those things inside of our bodies and our minds that we were given at birth, and somehow we've become so separated from them. And this work that we're doing, whether it's with confidence or with our bodily mentally health, is about getting back to that core space.
right. Yeah, that's so true. And I love that analogy with children, because it is, yeah, you see kids, and kids, they may say anything, but it is boosted in that level of confidence that they have. And somehow, we just lose that over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I love that you have this concept of prevention inside of the things that you teach. What was it about, or I guess where in your life were you finally at the point where you were like, this is something that I want to teach. I want to teach prevention. I want to teach the essence of health in us as human beings.
Yeah, yeah. So one of my favorite quotes is, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure."
Mhm.
And that quote, it just says so much because it really speaks to that fact that, yeah, I'm medically trained. I can prescribe you a bunch of medicines, and
Yeah.
all of these things, and we can do all of that, and we can, do a lot of expensive workup and all of these things. But you're going to get, more bang for your buck, if you will, really by preventing these things from occurring. If you prevent diabetes, for example, from occurring, then you don't have the high cost of insulin or the high cost of potentially losing a limb or going blind, or that impact that it not only will have on you, but also on your children and on your family as a
Mm.
whole. And how you live your life. If you're able to prevent that beforehand, then that's going to take you much further than once that thing occurs, and trying
Mhm.
to trying to reverse it. Now, these conditions are reversible. And that's another part of what I do is helping folks to reverse these conditions. But if we can prevent them beforehand, you're going to get so much further there.
Yeah. And also the concept of preventing the progression. I think
Mhm.
sometimes people hear prevention as, well, there is the side of prevention, which is making sure it doesn't happen to begin with. But then there's another side of prevention also that is, okay, if you get to a point in your life where it is happening, what is the prevention steps you can take to keep it from progressing?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, because that other part is so important too. It's, one of those things, none of us are perfect and we all, make mistakes, whether that be a mistake in what we consume or what we do.
Mhm.
And once we get to that point, it is having that next step of knowing how to prevent that progression from occurring. So yeah, if you do have diabetes, well, let's keep it from becoming to a point of where you're suffering from the kidney failure or the blindness or the limb amputations and those things. It's never too late. And another thing that I like to focus on, I'm all about the science. And so
Yeah.
I recently read a study where they even looked at individuals, and they looked at older individuals because a lot of times people say, oh, I'm too old for this or for that.
Mhm.
And what they even found is, even with older individuals, once they started making those steps of changing what was on their plate, they even showed change and improvement in preventing things from progressing. They were looking at particularly heart disease in the study, and they even showed improvement from progressing of heart disease. So it's never too late for us to start. Once things, have gotten to that point, we can still pull it back and,
Yeah.
still prevent that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so important.
I love this aspect of education. I am also very much a science research, I say nerd, but I think we're pretty awesome.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. But there's also this idea that like education, I think, is something that people tend to be, I think, shy about, admitting, especially Black families admitting that maybe they weren't doing the best thing that they could do for their health or their family or their children because they didn't know. And that becomes
Mhm.
a very difficult thing to say, okay, I didn't know. Now I want to know because I'm realizing that everything I didn't know is negatively impacting how I feel and how I show up every day. And being able to say, okay, I didn't know what I didn't know. And now I want to know. And it doesn't matter how old you are when you gain that education or make these changes, that they still can positively impact you. You know, um, Once you know better, you do better, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's so true, especially, for people of color in America. If we even look back to days where our people were enslaved, they were only given certain types of foods and
Mhm.
certain, types of things that they were able to receive. And then even the way that that looks now here in, 2022, going into 2023, it still, looks that way in certain communities of color where people still don't have access certain types of food. They don't have access to gardens and fresh food. There are a lot of communities where there's only fast food places on every corner, yet you can't find a grocery store. Or safe environments to even go out for a walk, just to clear your head and to get some exercise. And so these aspects certainly play a part into it also. And then the other part of it is knowledge and education. A lot of what we've been taught, even just kind of looking back, what has come out from our government and our government plans as to what health should look like. And a lot of that, believe it or not, is political. It shouldn't
Mhm.
be, but it is. A lot of it is, who paid the most money to have this, be
Yeah.
subsidized, and those kind of things that play a part in it. So a lot of it that plays a part into what we eat or don't eat, and what we think we should eat versus what we actually should be consuming. So it's important for us to educate ourselves and to look beyond just, what may be just promoted to you, to look beyond that.
Yeah. Speaking of this place of, increasing our education about how to incorporate these things into our life, I would love to chat with you a little bit about the mental space that people, what's the best way to say this? I would like to ask you about the mental space that you help people get into when they're beginning to incorporate this education, and not just the education piece, but also the practice piece. Once you learn how to cook a certain food, or you learn how to incorporate that into a meal, or make a meal plan, or a shopping list or something like that, what are the ways that you help people, women, families get into the mental space to support them for the consistency and longevity of, nutritional choices?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so one of the ways that I practice, and one of the things that I incorporate into my program, is the concept of mind body balance. And so what that is it's a focus on the interconnectedness of what we consume, how we move our bodies, and what we think and what our
Mhm.
mindset is. Because if those three components are not in balance together, then it's difficult to have overall health and wellness. And just breaking that down, even a little bit further, you may see some people who may exercise a lot, they exercise all the time, but then they may, eat junk food, or they may, not be in the best mental space. And they still have, certain issues. And so one of the things that I incorporate to help people work on from that mindset standpoint is one, having a positive mindset. Because if we're constantly feeding ourselves negative self talk, if we never see ourselves in a positive light, then we start to internalize that. And if we, already see ourselves negatively, then that's going to impact one, what we choose to eat, because
Mhm.
we're not feeling the greatest anyway. So we're gonna say, whatever, with this
Mhm.
healthy eating, I'm just gonna, pick any old thing. And then, we may not exercise. And so it sets that whole interconnectedness, it sets it off track again. So, having a positive mindset. The other thing I like to incorporate is meditation.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times, for us, I'm a mom too. I don't know if I said that. Mom of three, and so for us moms and us working moms especially, there's always something to be done. We're always on the go, on the go, on the go, and a lot of times we put ourselves last, and we don't take that time just to breathe and and even
Mhm.
think clearly for ourselves. And so just incorporating even meditation can help with stress levels. It's been shown to help lower cortisol levels, which in turn can lower blood pressure and blood sugar. And can even just clear your mind enough to say, you know what? Hey, I took 10 minutes to just breathe and think. And now I can see that, oh, now I feel better about choosing this for my meal, or oh, now I feel better about going for a walk. And so, yeah, it's all interconnected, and then one thing impacts the other. And so just helping people to realize that and put all of that into perspective.
Yeah, that mental clarity that sometimes gets really hard to connect with when there's so much going on every single day from every aspect of the day and the people that are around you. I appreciate you bringing up meditation, because I found that also to be a very beneficial practice. I mean, I don't have kids, and I do run my own business, but it's one of those things that helps me turn off social media, helps me turn off whatever documentary I was watching, helps me turn off my cat running around and jumping on things, right? And I, during a previous interview of Women of Color and Confidence, I was talking to someone about the pressure of the term meditate, or the activity of meditation. People hear meditation, they think of something very specific, that on your pillow and you're holding your fingers out and your back straight, all the concept that we've seen in like movies and things like that.
Right.
And one of the best ways to alleviate that pressure from meditation, I think, is to discuss it more as a calming of the mind, and a calming of the sensory interaction that you get from the outside. So even something like just sitting in a chair with your eyes closed can be very meditative. For me, I have, activities in my life that are meditative. Some people say things like washing the dishes is meditative, like just sitting there and washing
Right.
something over and, washing it and enjoying it. And that puts them in a meditative state. For me, embroidery is a very meditative activity where I am
Hmm.
sitting, my energy level comes down, my attention and focus is on this one thing. The sound of the needle going in and the thread coming out is very meditative to my auditory senses. And
Yeah.
so when we talk about meditation for calming the mind, if you can release the pressure of this idea of being a perfect yogi sitting on a pillow and perfect and stillness and focus, and just really think about the idea of meditating as being still in a quiet space, maybe shutting your eyes, taking some deep breaths, but just really allowing all of the other things that tickle the senses to be separated from your body and your mind in that space. It's the same, you'll get the same result as something that someone would consider more like a yogic meditation.
Right. Yeah, that is so true. I'm glad you pointed that out. And I will tell you, it is. It's so true. I had a client recently, and this person, she is a very busy professional. She owns her own business, and and she just felt so stressed and overwhelmed, even just from her business. And so, what we talked about is her just stepping out of the building, the brick and mortar
Hmm.
building, stepping out, going to sit in her car even just for
Hmm.
10 minutes, not answering a phone, not doing any of those things, and just sitting, watching
Hmm.
hearing the birds chirp, just looking out of the window.
Hmm.
And she did it. She started doing that for a couple of days. And the next time I chatted with her, she was like, "Oh my goodness, that has been so helpful." And
Yeah.
you're right. It wasn't anything, magical. She didn't have to go get sensory, music,
Yeah.
or go sit on a fancy pillow or anything like that. Just go sit in her car, 10 minutes, turn everything off. Don't
Yeah.
have anybody, in her ear. And it did. So yeah, meditation can be what you make it, but just really taking that time, just for you, and kind of blocking out everything else is the important piece to that.
Yeah, I used to do that when I had a job in San Diego, and I worked in a co-working space. So not only was like my office with the people that I worked with always kind of phone calls and meetings and like all this stuff, but then there were offices all over this building, and I remember sometimes my energy would be so jacked, so just like and so after I would eat, when I got to lunchtime, I was like, feed me. So I would like feed myself very quickly. And then with whatever time I had left on my break, I would just find like a conference room or the roof, or sometimes I did a walking meditation, which is just literally to like sit and like feel my food in my belly, knowing that it was about to give me some fuel and energy. And I would just sit there and like be calm, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's just enough to get you to a place where you're not so high strung, where you're not worried or stressed. You're just like, I'm just gonna sit for a second, or even take two walks around the block, looking at the trees, looking at the sky, without running into anybody, obviously, but just like being
Yeah.
very intentional about the walk, being not speed walking, just a calming
Mhm.
walk to, bring that energy back down. And I love that. I didn't have a car at the
Mhm.
time, which is why I had to choose a spot to
Yeah.
to kind of like shut things out. But it's just that process, and like you said,
Mhm.
that whole mind body connection is so real, and that they're so symbiotic also,
Mhm.
right? The mind feeds the body and the body feeds the mind,
Yeah.
and we can include energy in that too, right? If you're constantly in a hectic high strung environment, then your brain is constantly on hectic high strung, gotta work fast, and then your body is constantly in this elevated state of like, I don't like panic really. Just like gotta go, right? But if you take the time to like sit your body down, or take your body on a nice slow walk, then your body goes, I can calm down. And then your brain goes, oh, I can too. And then your energy goes, okay, we're gonna chill for a second. And it doesn't need to be an all day thing. It doesn't need to be an extended period of time, but having your body in that elevated state of energy, having your mind in that elevated state of energy constantly is what creates burnout, and it's what creates us slipping back into habits that maybe aren't the most healthy.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, what is the ideal? I'm going to take it back to a prevention for a second. What is
Mhm.
your idea prevention plan for someone who's just starting to feel like maybe their habits or what they're eating or what they're doing every day isn't making them feel good and is possibly making them sick? Where do you
Mhm.
start with the people that you work with when they come to you in that state?
Right. Yeah. So, really, I first meet them where they're at. And so, we figure out what what it has looked like that has gotten them to that point.
Mhm.
So, I'll just kind of take you through initially. When I start with someone, we will do what I call a diet recall. So even just, what did you eat today? kind of, it doesn't even have to be anything in depth, but just, what did you have? And even talk about more deeply, why did you have those particular foods? Because what I find sometimes for people is say, well, that was all I had in my office, or oh, that was, the purse candy, kind of
Mhm,
thing.
mhm.
So we talk about
I
that
have purse
aspect of
candy.
it. Right. Yeah. Yeah, so we talk about that aspect, and then we talk about, well, how did you feel from that?
Yeah.
Did that meal, like one of the things you mentioned, like, did that meal make you feel energized, or did you feel really sluggish after you ate that cheeseburger or whatever it was? And so, really meeting the person where they're at first, so that we can break that down further, and then slowly make those different steps. Because like the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we definitely aren't going to undo some of these habits very quickly, which is also why I'm not a fan of fat dieting and kind of quick fixes. I'm more of
Mhm.
a sustainable approach. The things that I teach people are things that can sustain them really through their lives, with just some of instituting these practices for them. So yeah, so starting with where they're at, and then just going from there, particularly when it comes to food. If there are certain foods that I find that a person likes to eat, then you still want people to be able to enjoy that, because one of the parts of something being sustainable is enjoyment. But we
Mhm.
talk about maybe ways to make it healthier. If you like tacos, we can make those tacos, a different way so that you can still enjoy tacos. But maybe let's do it a little bit, something different with it, kind of deal.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that that's a very personable approach. And one of the reasons I asked you that question is because I know that people fear making these changes because they're
Hmm.
afraid that whoever it is that they entrust to help them make those changes are going to be judgmental and militant and focused on losing weight and that kind of thing. And I appreciate people like you, Dr. Shayla, who really are about discovery without judgment. How is it that
Yeah.
we can look at what it is that you're currently doing, and I can still impart the information and the knowledge onto you about the different ways that that's hurting you right now, but let's
Mhm.
make a plan to shift you to where you want to be, in the places that you want to be feeling better, and still incorporate things that you enjoy. I think that that's the other thing that I hear a lot. Like, I don't want to work with, I actually just had a friend of mine say that she didn't want to work with a personal trainer because she didn't want, one, them to judge how she's not that strong or she can't do certain kinds of things, and two, to be the person that's like, you're going to do it because your body's stronger than your mind. And like, also, she's like, I don't want that. And
Yeah,
I was like, oh, you just need to find a personal trainer that's not going to treat you like that. Like, there's all different
exactly.
kinds, right?
Exactly.
So being able to have this place be a safe place for people to come to say, like, this is honestly what I eat in a day. I don't have to lie to you, but also
Yeah.
I still want to eat these 5 things. So can we make a plan
Mhm.
around those? That's a really admirable place to be in, to start with people.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, because you do, because if a person, if one, it goes back to that interconnectedness. So if they've already got it in their mindset that, oh, this is not going to be enjoyable, oh, I'm going to hate this,
Mhm.
that's going to translate to those other, aspects of health. And so you want to keep that balance in mind, and you want to help them to realize that and to achieve that by keeping that balance and meeting people where they're at and going from there. If they're there to see me, then it's because they do realize that there are some changes to be made, and we can certainly do that and get them there.
I love it. For people who are listening to this who may be experiencing health challenges or feeling like they need to make a change, how would you suggest to them creating the confidence around making these changes, improving their health, or even reaching out to a professional like yourself for help?
Yeah. One thing I like to do with people is think about your why. Because when we consider why we want to do something, then that will typically fuel the action step to it.
Mhm.
So think about your why. Why is it that you want to improve your health? Is it just because the doctor told you you should? Which, after a decade of
Which could be a
practice,
reason.
that could be a reason, but I have not ever found that to be good enough for any of my patients. So
Yeah.
just because I said so. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, but really finding your why for yourself. And so, what I hear from folks sometimes that why is because I want to, maybe run a marathon, or
Yeah.
I want to be able to ride a certain ride at the amusement park, or I want
Mm.
to be able to go play with my kids or grandkids. So really, for that person to really think what that why is for them. How
Mhm.
do they want to feel, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and how do they want things to, how they feel to look differently, and why do they want it to look differently or feel differently at that point?
Mhm.
And then that will typically fuel that next action step to make change.
I love it. And one of the things that I recommend to my clients when it comes to your why list, your why statements is, you can ask yourself, why do I want to do this? And you could say something like, I want to be able to ride certain rides at the amusement park. And one of the things I recommend is always taking that a step further. Why do you want to ride the rides at the amusement park? Because last time I went, I couldn't, and my kid had to ride by themselves. Okay, why does that matter to you? Why does your kid riding them by themselves on a amusement park ride make you want to make changes? Well, I want them to have memories with me on the ride next to them, not memories of me standing to the side because I couldn't get on. Okay, why is it important for your kids to have that memory with you? And so the why list is amazing. And I always recommend breaking it down as many whys deep as you can, because the deeper your why is, the more powerful that why is. I don't think that anyone would say getting on a ride at an amusement park is the reason I want to lose weight, but there's more to that why. It's not getting on the ride and being like, woo, I'm like on it, here's my picture, whatever. It's more about the memories you make with your children. And that is the why.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I asked you earlier if you had any hindrances to your own self-confidence, you mentioned that mostly you have a rocky relationship with your confidence when you're trying new things. And I know that this can be something that other people will feel when they start thinking about changes that they want to make to their health. We know behavioral changes around exercise and food are some of the hardest
Mhm.
to get consistent with for almost everybody. I really appreciate you admitting that. I too am one that my confidence, even as a confidence coach, my confidence tends to get real low when I have to try something new for the first time. And I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be the best at it that I've ever been for trying
Mhm.
something new.
Yeah.
My perfectionist inner critic comes out and is like, if you can't do it perfect, don't do it. And so I 100% resonate with that. I'm curious how it is that you would help a patient that came to you, or someone who reached out to you, like on social media or something, that admitted that they also were fearful about having the confidence to really make the changes in their life as they started working with you. What's the advice that you would give them, or things that you would say?
Yeah, yeah. So for even for me, when it comes to trying something new, for me, it's more of that fear of the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
really. We're doing something new or something different. We're not really sure what the end part to that's gonna look like because we haven't done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that can be scary for a lot of us. And so the way that I typically approach that for myself is by researching. For me, I'm the kind of person, I'll give you the example. I also do triathlon. And so before my first triathlon that I ever did, I actually went to just watch a race, just to see how it was
Yeah.
done. Yeah, and that helped me because I saw all these people, different shapes, sizes, and ages, and everything doing this race. They were swimming, they were biking, they were running, and people they looked happy, to be
Yeah.
there. And I said, okay, I can do this thing, and that really gave me that level of confidence to go out and then do a triathlon. And so, it's the same when we're even making these health changes. So even, maybe seeing what that looks like. So it kind of comes back to finding your why. So, knowing that in your mind and what that end piece you want to look like for you and how you want to feel, and then saying, I can do that. But,
Mhm.
this is good. This is something I want to try, and then just really putting that foot out there. And when it comes to your health, it's one of those things you've got something to lose on the one hand if you don't make these changes. But then, on the other hand, you can at least give it a try.
Yeah. That's a
Mhm.
really good point that you bring up. And I don't tend to market my services, and I can tell that you don't either towards that. What do you have to lose? What are all the worst things that could happen? I try to come from a place of what are the best things that can happen. And that there's always going to be a little bit of fear around things that you don't know. And when it comes to the more challenging behaviors of exercise and nutrition, there's an understanding there that there is unknown stuff that you just don't know. And so working with a professional can seem very daunting at first. I also, in the same thing, I love research and I love looking things up. I feel like Google sometimes leads people in a direction I wish that it would not. But there is still some good stuff out there, like what are the little things that you may need to change right off the bat? And I know that you have a podcast also. So I'm sure that you share a lot of those things on your podcast as well. So I encourage those of you listening today to check that out as well. But what I really love about everything that I've seen from you, and even talking with you today, is that there is a level of understanding without judgment. And that the most impactful way to help a person make change is to allow them to learn all of the things, to get the education without shoving it down their throat or making them feel bad about not knowing it ahead of time, right? I think sometimes
Exactly.
that there are professionals, and I feel like Google sometimes brings this up, because there was a lot of like fear-based marketing that happens all the time, right? That the first things you see are like, these are the reasons that you need to do this, otherwise you're gonna get cancer and
Yeah,
die. You're like,
doom and
oh,
gloom. Right.
you're
Yeah.
like, well, I
Yeah.
just want to figure out how to incorporate more greens in my weekly
Right.
diet. Like that escalated quickly. But this idea of knowing that it's also a journey in that education, right? Like people who go to school for this, people who teach this, the doctors are out here that are here to help you. They don't learn these things overnight and then all of a sudden come to you and they're just like, do this or it's over for you, right? There is a level of
Exactly.
education. And so if you can begin to approach what it is you're going to learn, and I say the exact same thing about self-confidence, right? There is a ton of stuff on Google about how imposter syndrome will ruin your career, or how comparison is the thief of all joy and you won't be happy unless you curb. And I'm like, that none of that is true. I mean, it can impact those things, but like you're not going to learn how to never compare yourself to anybody ever again by talking to me for one time, right?
Yeah.
All of this is learning the little bits of each part of the journey and then slowly incorporating them into your life, in the same way that you would learn anything if you went to school for it, right? Nothing is
Exactly.
put into your brain immediately and you're like, flip on, flip off. Like it's all
Right.
about the education. And so, um,
Yeah,
thank
and the other piece to that, even, like you said, Google, there's so much out there, but
yeah.
knowing what is fact and what is fiction is important.
Mm,
And, that's why it's so important to work with someone who, is an expert in whatever that field may be, because you can go out there and look at these things, but unless you know how to really utilize what you're receiving and
right,
utilize that knowledge and get it in a safe way, especially in what I do. I see and hear so much stuff that's just really not safe for people to do.
right.
Which is
Speaking of
also
fad diets,
yeah,
so over
exactly.
how they
Yeah.
hurt people. I'm like, oh, so we're not going to talk about
Mhm.
how this hurts. Talk about
Right.
pain points.
Right, exactly. And so, that's that other important piece of why it's helpful and necessary, to work with someone who really knows what they're doing and can guide you safely to
Yeah.
so that you're not worsening your situation.
I appreciate you bringing that up. And I know that you've talked about a couple of research studies here. I'm also someone that reads behavior and psychological research studies for confidence coaching, because there is so much stuff that people are like, oh, like this worked for me, so it's got to work for everyone. And it's like, actually, there's been 3 research studies that show that what you did doesn't work for everybody. And so
Exactly.
out here promoting something that works specifically for you, which tends to be less than 2% of the population that was tested for this particular thing. And now you're telling everybody it should work for them. And then they try it. And now they feel like crap about themselves because it doesn't work for them. Research shows that it doesn't work for most people, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been trying. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I've been trying to share more research, even in my social media, just because I think that, Google, blogs, vlogs, all of that stuff has made everybody an expert if they say they are, right?
Right.
Able to go back to a source of some sort of science or research is always a good support. But I've learned that in my career as well, that people who think Wikipedia is actually research, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I hate to break your bubble, but like that was like
Right.
the one
Exactly.
source we were never allowed to use in college. So
Right. Yeah.
one source. So being able to understand, I actually read a blog last week, and I emailed the doctor that wrote the blog, and I said, hey, he was a psychologist, and I said, hey, where did you source this information from? And I got like an automatic reply back that was like, oh, the reference links are inside the blog. And I was like, well, okay, I've looked this thing up and down and I haven't seen anything. But from other research that I've read, some of this doesn't sound like it aligns. So I'm just curious, can you like point me in the direction of the actual study? Never heard back from him again. And so I was like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
that's like interesting. I did get a reply back. It wasn't like it went to spam or anything, but once I was asking very specifically like where the information came from, and so then I was one of those people where I wrote in the comments, I asked this doctor to source this information for me, and I still haven't been able to get a link. But if you would like to send me the link, this is my email address, because all the people in the comments are saying this one thing. And my one mind that actually reads research on a regular basis is like, I'm like, I mean, maybe I just don't know, but that doesn't sound
Mhm.
right,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's easy enough to find, but I think, similarly to what we've been talking about with nutritional education, nutritional choices, a health mindset. If my degree was a research degree, so I did a lot of that stuff when I was in college. But if you've never done anything like that, some of this feels very foreign. You might as well be trying to
Right.
read Japanese for all
Mhm.
right? I try to put myself in that remembrance too, especially with the curriculums that I create, right? That
Mhm.
it's like, I think that this is just so easy to read and so easy to understand. And then remembering people are looking at this for the very first time with brand new, fresh eyes. And so how can we bring it back to, I like to think of a lot of my programs as going from kindergarten
Right.
into, school, elementary school, into
Mhm.
middle school, into high school, and then college, and then your PhD program. Like if you go from A to B with me in the curriculums that I have, you're going to be getting that education in that streamlined way. It's not like all of a sudden you're in a doctorate program and you're like, I don't know
Right.
anything
I don't know what to
before
do with
this.
this. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Shayla, can you please tell me, what is it that you would like to be known for?
Yeah, I would love to be known for as the go-to expert to help folks prevent and reverse chronic disease with sustainable lifestyle changes.
Sustainable is the key here. For
Yeah.
those of you who have been following fad diets or, trendy things on TikTok or Instagram, one of the things I like to remind you is that a lot of them are not sustainable. And because they're not sustainable and they're meant to be super quick turnaround results, that if you try to make them sustainable, they can be hazardous to your health in the long run. So following somebody like Dr. Shayla is one of the ways that you can really gain that education from the ground up so that you can maintain that sustainability, whether it's in your weight loss, in your mental health, in your physical health. Sustainability isn't about, turning it on, turning it off, or, binging the information and thinking you're automatically going to behave based on that information. But working with someone like Dr. Shayla can help you really incorporate these changes, these health changes into the life that you already have with the activities that you enjoy and the foods you like to eat, so that sustainably over the course of your life, you can feel the benefits of them.
Exactly, for sure.
Awesome. So where would you like people to find you? I did mention the podcast.
Yeah,
I will put a link to that into the show notes here. Are you on social media?
I am. I can be found on both Facebook and Instagram at Essence of Health Wellness Clinic. And then I am on TikTok also. It's at dr.tw at EOHWC. So yeah, but if you just come to the website, eohcoaching.com, then you can certainly find me.
eohcoaching.com. Love it. I will also put a link to your website, your podcast, your TikTok, and probably your Instagram in the show notes too, so everyone can go out and find you. Dr. Shayla, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation and chatting with you. I can tell that you're doing good things in our community. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for being on the show.
And thank you, Amber, for all that you do.
Yes, yes. Okay, thanks for everybody for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a fresh new episode for you. Thank you for listening to Women of Color and Confidence, and I'll be back with you soon.